Here are 4 AEW opponents that I think Toni Storm needs to work with in 2025. Now, timeless Toni Storm, she reached a dramatic climax at AEW Revolution 2025, where she ended her intense rivalry with Mariah May over the Women's World Championship match. Their Hollywood ending for the AEW World title was widely praised for its compelling storyline, impactful violence, and satisfying conclusion. With that chapter closed, Storm now sets her sights on new challenges in the women's AEW roster in AEW, and they boast a just absolute star-studded list of potential contenders for timeless Toni Storm. Now, on the March 12th episode of AEW Dynamite, Megan Bayne made a powerful statement by attacking Storm, absolutely blindsiding her and clearly establishing herself as the next challenger. Now, beyond Bayne, there is a wealth of talent ready to step up and ready to go. In this video, we will explore some of the most promising candidates that could be in line to face Toni Storm after her match with Megan Bayne, because I think we all can agree that we're probably not going to get a title change with Megan Bayne beating timeless Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship. Now, let's get into it. Let's start it off at number 4. Kris Statlander. AEW needs to push Statlander to the title and to the world title scene immediately. Think about it. Kris Statlander has forever been one of AEW's most consistent women's stars. She hasn't had a shot at a top prize for the women's championship in some time, although she did work with Mercedes Moné for the TBS title in late 2024. Storm and Statlander would absolutely create magic. Think about it like this. Kris Statlander's work with her feuds with Willow Nightingale and Mercedes Moné in 2024 brought out some of the best AEW women's matches ever in the history of this promotion going back to 2019. Her backlog of great matches makes her a fully deserving candidate and someone who deserves a push for a feud with Storm. She's also someone who can play both babyface and both heel, and she has a real connection with the AEW fan base that I think would make for an outstanding feud. Now let's keep it moving here. How about number 3, former AEW Women's Champion, Jamie Hayter. Now these two, they have some unfinished business. Think about it like this. Toni Storm defeated Jamie Hayter to become the AEW Women's Champion before she won it back from Mariah May. They have proven chemistry in the ring, and Hayter, she's been struggling for momentum ever since returning at All In 2024. Ever since coming back from her long-term injury, Jamie Hayter has not been quite the same in terms of momentum, quality, and star power. Giving her an underdog championship chase or even a heel turn could certainly turn things around for her, especially if given the opportunity to go up against someone like Toni Storm. I think this would be a very interesting feud. There's a lot of backstory that you can play off of, and I think it's someone that you can not only have Toni Storm feud with, fans can believe that Hayter actually has a shot, but more importantly, Toni Storm can actually win and retain the championship, and I think that's someone that you really need to keep an eye on and really keep into consideration. Number 2, Julia Hart. Now, Julia Hart, in my opinion, needs a shot at the top AEW prize. The gimmicks of Toni Storm and Julia Hart clashing, well, it would be unique. You also have to keep in mind that Julia Hart has been one of AEW's fastest rising stars. She also needs to have an opportunity to prove that she can be at the very tippy top of AEW once again. Let's kick it back. Throughout 2023 and into 2024, Julia Hart was the fast tracking her way to the very top of the AEW women's division, showcasing undeniability, aura, and growing presence in the ring under the spotlight, and doing so as TBS champion. Now, an injury ruled her out of action for the rest of the year, and she had to give up the TBS championship. Her return in 2025, well, it hasn't necessarily set the world on fire just yet. Hopefully that can change, though, because Hart, she could find herself in the exact spot that she needs to be in a feud with Toni Storm. The contrast of their gimmicks would be entertaining to see, and one can imagine the fun that Toni Storm could have by playing off the darker and spookier character in which Julia Hart presents. The younger name is in need for something new, fresh, and a shot at the world title could be thoroughly deserved for Hart after all of the improvements that she has made since returning to AEW television. I love this feud. It goes back to the Jamie Hayter thing of Julia Hart is a worthy contender. She's a former champion. She brings a real threat, and the fans can believe that Julia Hart can win and beat her. But at the same time, Toni Storm could also keep the title. So that's definitely someone to keep in mind. Now, at number 1, it is Mercedes Moné. AEW's biggest money match in the women's division is certainly this. Moné and Toni Storm are AEW's 2 biggest female stars and 2 of the biggest names in the promotion. This has the ability to headline a pay-per-view. They could also have multiple matches, turn it into a series for the AEW Women's World Title. Mercedes Moné may be the reigning TBS champion, but at some point, she's going to have to drop that gold. And when she does, you best believe that she's going to go after the women's champion because she is the CEO. And as a result, she would have to target Toni Storm. Mercedes Moné is the most recognizable name in AEW's women's division by far, and she is undoubtedly a defined star. Whereas Toni Storm, she is the most over and entertaining female star in all of AEW, one of the more entertaining stars in just anywhere today. These 2 factors would make it feel like a momentum clash and a monumental clash at that. Toni Storm, Mariah May going toe-to-toe for the AEW Women's World Championship in the center, and it could be a feud that brings AEW Women's Division to the highest position that it has been in thus far in its young history, especially if AEW is able to pull the trigger on a main event type pay-per-view match. Putting the very first AEW Women's match as a pay-per-view main event, that would be outstanding. Now, on the other hand, AEW, they shouldn't also push into it. They shouldn't rush into it, but they do have an opportunity to book the biggest feud that they've ever been able to book as a women's feud in the women's division and book one of the biggest, if not the biggest women's match ever. I'm telling y'all, this is a money match. This is a match in which you will have fans who are Mercedes Moné supporters want to see her win the women's championship. You also have timeless Toni Storm fans who look at it and go, okay, finally, our champion, our star, can shut up Mercedes Moné. It's a clash in which either one could win. It is a draw. And AEW, at a time in which they are struggling, whether that's ticket sales, momentum, social media engagement, ratings, you name it, you have it, they need all the help that they can get. If you're able to book this match, I think you 100% do it. I think you do it, and you have no hesitation in doing so. But as I said, you have to book it in the right spot. Maybe that's an all-in Texas. Maybe that's Delaware or nothing, but I think it's a match that they should absolutely do, and I cannot wait to see it.